They say the forest changes after dark, not just the way the shadows stretch or how the wind turns cold, but something deeper, something underneath. I used to laugh at that. I was a U.S. forest ranger in Allegheny National Forest, Pennsylvania. I carried a sidearm, knew the terrain better than my own living room, and wasn't scared of much. Until that night. It was a Thursday, mid-October. I remember because the leaves had turned a deep rust color, and the wind had a bite to it like the season itself was warning me to stay inside. I'd pulled night patrol that week, solo shifts, just me, my flashlight, and a lot of empty woods. Usually it was just routine. Check for illegal campsites, make sure no one's setting fires, or getting lost. Nothing dramatic. But that night changed everything I thought I understood about fear. Around 12:45 a.m., I was deep along a no-camping stretch near Wildman's Ravine, a part of the trail we keep locked down hard after dark. Too many falls. Too many disappearances. Locals whisper about it. Say the woods don't forget when blood touches the moss there. I was making my usual loop, boots crunching over dead leaves, when I noticed it. A faint glow flickering between the trees, maybe 50 yards off the trail. At first I thought it was a reflection, maybe moonlight bouncing off something metallic. But the forest was thick, and the sky that night was pitch black, no moon. The glow was moving. It danced, swayed almost, as if someone was carrying a lantern, but not like the LED headlamps hikers wear. This was dimmer. Orange-yellow, like an oil lamp from another century. I should have radioed it in. That's protocol. But I didn't, and I can't explain why, except that I felt drawn, compelled, like something wanted me to see it. I turned off my flashlight, stepped off the trail, and moved slowly toward the light. Every instinct told me to stop, but something in my chest pulled harder, like a hook behind the sternum. The air felt heavier the deeper I went. My breath, suddenly loud in my ears, steamed in the cold. The light danced through the trees just ahead. Always ahead, never letting me catch up. I called out once hoarsely, "Hey, Ranger Service, you can't be out here." But the forest swallowed my voice. No echo, no wind, just silence. That's when it hit me. The silence. The forest is never silent. Not here. Not this deep. No insects. No rustle of branches. No owls. Just dead air and that flickering, beckoning light. I moved closer. Branches scratched my face, tore at my jacket. The underbrush thickened unnaturally fast, like the forest was growing around me. The ground felt soft, spongy, wrong, like it didn't want me walking there. Then the light stopped. It just hovered between two gnarled trees, a dim lantern flame hanging in midair. I froze, heart slamming against my ribs. I raised my flashlight and switched it on, but the beam seemed swallowed by the dark. I stepped forward, boots sinking slightly, into the moss. There it was, an old lantern, rusted, hanging from a branch, its glass filthy and cracked, flame flickering weakly inside, though there was no visible fuel, no handle, no chain, and no one around. I took another step. My boot snapped a twig, and the flame died. Instant darkness, like someone had draped the entire forest in velvet. I gasped, then nearly screamed. Because in that moment, when the light vanished, the silence shattered. Behind me, crunch. A single slow footstep, right next to my ear. I spun, flashlight flailing, but there was nothing, just trees. And then, the sound of breathing, ragged, wet, right beside me. But no one was there. I turned back to the lantern. It was gone. And in its place, carved into the bark of the tree where it had hung, was a symbol I'd never seen before. Spiral, jagged, bleeding sap like the tree had cried when it was made. I backed away. My flashlight dimmed for a second, flickered like it was running out of battery even though I'd just changed them. I turned and ran. And I swear, as I ran through the trees, something was following. Not footsteps, something worse. Something whispering my name. I didn't stop running until my lungs burned and my legs begged me to collapse. Somewhere along the way I'd dropped my radio. My cap was gone. My jacket sleeve was ripped wide open, and I didn't remember how. I stumbled, back onto the main trail, barely recognizing it in the dark, and leaned against a fallen log to catch my breath. The flashlight in my hand flickered again, then stabilized, almost like whatever had messed with it had let go. But I didn't feel safe. The forest didn't feel empty anymore. It felt awake. I turned in circles, scanning the tree line, half expecting to see that light again. Or worse, a figure standing dead still between the trees. But there was nothing. Just darkness and the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. I told myself I imagined it. The light, the whisper, the breath, just tricks of isolation and exhaustion. Maybe even a minor hallucination. I'd seen worse on overnight patrols, but I couldn't shake that image of the spiral carved into the bark, the way it seemed to pulse in my memory like it was still alive. I kept moving, trying to get back to the ranger station. But the trail had changed. At first I thought I'd taken a wrong turn, maybe looped back without realizing it, but every tree looked off, bent, warped. The branches hung too low like they were reaching for me. The path narrowed where it shouldn't have, and then I noticed the smell, rotting wood, wet metal, and something else. Something sour and wrong, like old blood soaked into soil. That's when I saw the footprints. Not mine. Not boot prints. Bare feet. Long. Narrow. Toes too far apart. Pressed deep into the mud, leading away from the trail. Into the trees. And behind them. Drag marks. Like something had been pulled along. I stood frozen, torn between following and fleeing, but I didn't need to choose, because the air changed again. Thick. Cold. And the silence came back. Total, unnatural silence. I raised my flashlight, and the beam hit her, just for a second. A woman. At least, I think it was a woman. She stood, about 30 feet away, almost hidden behind a tree. Pale skin stretched too tightly over her frame. Her eyes. No. I don't know if she had eyes. Just deep hollows where they should have been, her head tilted slowly, too slowly, as if she was listening to my heartbeat. I couldn't move, couldn't even breathe. Then she stepped back behind the tree and vanished. I didn't go after her. I couldn't. I turned and walked, fast, steady, forcing myself to stay on the trail. But with every step I took, I felt it, the sense of being watched, not from one direction, but from everywhere, the whole forest pressing in, listening. I passed a tree and stopped cold, another spiral, fresh, carved into the bark, sap still running, and, under it, 3 words scratched deep beneath the symbol. You're already inside. My mouth went dry, my vision tunneled. I spun around trying to find something familiar, anything that would confirm I was still in my jurisdiction. Then I heard it again, the lantern, the click of the glass, the tiny whoosh of flame. I turned slowly, and there it was, far off the trail again, hanging from a different tree, flickering like it had never gone out. And behind it, deeper in the woods, a doorway. No, not a real one, just 2 trees, arched together unnaturally, their branches fused overhead, a perfect frame, and the lantern hung dead center, waiting. daring me to step through. I took one step toward it. Just one. And that's when the forest breathed. I don't know how else to describe it. The trees shifted. The leaves shuddered. The wind didn't blow. It exhaled, like something massive and ancient had just noticed me. I fell back, my hands scraping against the ground. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. My mouth opened, but something inside me, some primal instinct, refused to make a noise. Because if I did, something might answer. I don't remember standing up. All I know is that one moment I was staring into the darkness, and the next I was sprinting, crashing through underbrush, branches tearing at my skin. I didn't care where I was going, only that it was away from that place, that arch, that lantern, that breathing forest. But the trail wouldn't let me go. No matter how far I ran, I kept seeing the same twisted trees, the same rocks, the same spirals carved into trunks. My boots hit the same puddle of black water 3 times. I was looping. Caught, trapped, I screamed finally, raw and desperate, and the forest answered, not with words, with laughter. Low, groaning, like old wood cracking in a fire. It came from all around me, as if the trees themselves were amused. That's when the light came back. Not the lantern this time. Flashlights, 3 of them, cutting through the dark. Hey, over here. Voices, human voices, rough, tired, but real. Rangers. I stumbled toward them, half sobbing, too exhausted to speak. They caught me just before I collapsed. I was found 5 miles from where I was supposed to be. My GPS tracker showed impossible data. Zigzags, spirals, complete nonsense. The radio I'd lost was never found. My flashlight was missing its batteries, yet still glowed faintly. I told them what happened. They listened, then they looked at each other, and no one said a word. Later, alone in the ranger station, one of the senior guys, Dan, pulled me aside. He'd been on the force for over 30 years. "I've seen that light too," he said, his voice low. "A long time ago. Thought I imagined it. I followed it once. Almost didn't make it back." I asked him what it was. He didn't answer. Just gave me a look that said more than words ever could. I was granted a temporary leave after that. No questions asked, just time to recover. But the thing is, I wasn't injured, not physically. The wounds were deeper than that. Even now, weeks later, I can't sleep with the lights off. I hear things when the world gets quiet. Breathing, scraping, the faint clink of metal swinging in the dark. And sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see it. The lantern, still burning, still waiting. I've tried to tell myself it was all in my head. Stress, exhaustion, isolation. But last night, I went out to grab the mail around midnight. The street was quiet. The woods, at the edge of my property, stood still. And in the tree line just past the last fence post, I saw a flicker. Soft, orange, swaying like an old lantern calling me home. There's a sound that doesn't belong in the forest. It's not the rustling of branches or the distant call of an owl. It's not even a scream exactly. It's the silence after the scream. I didn't understand that until the morning I almost didn't come back. My name's Jack Mercer. I used to be a firefighter, 25 years, mostly out west. I've dragged bodies from burning homes, seen things that stick in your teeth like smoke. But what happened 2 months ago on a foggy trail near Crater Lake, Oregon, it's the only thing that's ever made me afraid to close my eyes. I wasn't out there for any reason but peace. I'd retired earlier that year, bought a small cabin about 10 miles from the park, hoping the quiet would help me sleep again. That morning, I was up early, couldn't get comfortable, tossing and turning with that itch in my chest that always comes before something bad happens. I grabbed my boots, a thermos of coffee, and hit the trail around 5 a.m. It was thick with fog, the kind that eats sound and light like it's hungry. But that was normal. This part of Oregon lives under a curtain of mist half the year. What wasn't normal was what I saw maybe 30 minutes in. A figure, just ahead on the trail, perfectly still, shrouded in fog. Tall, thin, unmoving. At first I thought it was a tree, or maybe another early hiker taking a break. But then it tilted its head. Slow. Too slow. Like a puppet on a string that someone forgot how to control. I stopped. My breath caught in my throat like it was stuck there. I called out, "Hey, you all right?" No answer. No movement. I took a few careful steps forward, the gravel crunching under my boots. The figure didn't flinch. "Hey, you need help?" I tried again, louder. Nothing. Then the fog shifted. Just slightly. Enough for me to realize it wasn't facing me. Its head was turned, angled just enough that it looked like it was listening, not to the trail, not to the wind, to me. The hair on my arms stood up. I faced people on the edge, smoke-blind and dying, and I've never had my body scream at me like that. Every instinct I had said turn around. Walk. Now. But I couldn't. I was frozen. The figure didn't move, not even to breathe. And then, in the space of a single blink, it was gone. No shift, no step, no sound, just gone. I ran to where it had been, searching for footprints, for a dropped pack, anything to prove it had existed. There was nothing, just mist and cold, and a rising sense of nausea in my gut. I told myself it was just the fog, a trick of the light, my tired brain seeing patterns where there were none. I kept walking, but the woods never felt the same after that. It wasn't just quiet, it was expectant, like it was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. And that's when I heard it, a scream. Not close, but not far either. High-pitched, human. It sliced through the silence like a blade, echoing once, then nothing. I froze. Every nerve in my body locked up. I've heard plenty of screams in my life, but this one, it sounded wrong, too clean, too perfect, like someone had pressed play on a recording. I waited, listening for another cry, a crash, the sound of someone running. Nothing. Just fog curling around my legs like smoke, and that impossible silence. I called out, "Hello? You okay? Where are you?" Still nothing. Against every ounce of reason, I stepped off the trail, and that's when I saw the footprints, not mine, fresh, bare, and heading straight into the trees. I should have turned back. Every step I took off the trail felt wrong, like the ground beneath me didn't want to be stepped on. The air was colder here, dense and wet, clinging to my skin like sweat that didn't belong. I kept following the footprints, heart pounding, the scream still echoing in the back of my skull. I'd been trained to find people, injured hikers, crash victims, kids lost in the woods. But these tracks didn't follow any pattern I knew. They weaved in and out of trees, doubling back, stopping abruptly in the middle of nowhere. And the worst part? They weren't alone anymore. Another set appeared beside them, then a third, but only ever bare feet. All of them heading deeper into the trees. I started calling out again, louder this time, forcing my voice into the dead air. "Hello? Are you hurt?" I heard a scream. "Can you answer me?" No reply. Just the soft snap of a twig. Too close. I spun around, flashlight raised, cutting a circle through the mist. Nothing. Just fog and branches and shadows that didn't behave right. Some of them looked like they moved when I wasn't watching, slipping behind trees just out of sight. That's when the breathing started. Not mine. It was close. Wet. Labored. Like someone with fluid in their lungs. I whipped around trying to find the source, but the sound kept shifting. Left, right, behind me, then in front of me again. I held my breath, straining to hear over my own panic, and then it stopped. I stood there in the quiet, surrounded by footprints, and fog and a terror I hadn't known I was capable of feeling. Then the scream came again, the same scream, same pitch, same length, like someone had hit replay. It was closer this time. I started backing away, heart jackhammering in my chest. Then I saw it. The figure. Not the same one from earlier. This one was shorter but no less still. It stood maybe 20 feet away, just beyond a curtain of moss. Its skin was off, grayish, waxy. Its head tilted in the same wrong, unnatural angle, and its arms hung too long at its sides. It didn't blink, didn't move. It just watched. Something in me snapped. I turned and ran. I didn't care about the footprints, about whoever might have been screaming, about anything but getting the hell out. I tore through the trees, scraping my arms on bark, ducking under branches that seemed to lower as I passed. Everything looked the same. I couldn't find the trail. The fog was thicker now, clinging to me, blinding me. My flashlight dimmed, just like in those nightmares where nothing works when you need it. That's when I tripped. I slammed into the ground hard, cheek hitting cold dirt. As I pushed myself up, something caught my eye. A symbol, carved into a nearby tree, a spiral. Just like before. Only this one was different, bigger. And beneath it, crudely etched with something sharp. You heard it too. That's when I realized I hadn't stopped hearing the scream. It was still going. Faint. Just under the surface of the silence, like it was inside my ears now, no longer coming from the forest. Inside me. I don't know how long I stayed there, kneeling in front of that spiral, and it felt like hours, could have been minutes. Time stopped meaning anything. The scream had stopped, but the silence that followed was worse. It was inside me now. Not a memory. Not an echo. Something else. A pressure behind my eyes. A hum in my bones. I stood, legs shaking, scanning the fog for any sign of direction. Everything was wrong. Trees too close together. Moss growing in strange, symmetrical patterns. I kept walking, but no matter which way I turned, I ended up back at that same tree, with the spiral. Every time. Then I noticed the smell. It was faint at first. Metallic. Sour. Like rust and rot. It got stronger with every step. And then I saw the clearing. Wide and unnatural, as if something had pushed the forest back. Dead leaves formed a perfect circle on the ground. In the center sat a pile of clothing. Boots, a jacket, shredded fabric that might have been a backpack. All of it soaked in something dark. Old blood. Still wet. I recognized the brand on the boots. I'd passed a guy wearing them a week before, on the same trail. His name was Connor. Solo hiker. Friendly guy. He never checked out. I took one step toward the circle. That's when I heard my name. Jack, not yelled, whispered. It came from behind me, inches from my ear. I turned, swinging my flashlight wildly. Nothing. But the fog around me shifted. Recoiled. And then I saw them. Figures. Dozens of them. Standing just beyond the tree line. Motionless, watching. Their faces were blank. No features, no eyes, just pale masks of skin stretched too tightly. And each one of them had a spiral carved into their chest. Some fresh, some old, all bleeding. They didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't need to. One of them raised an arm and pointed at me. That broke me. I turned and ran, faster than I ever thought my old body could move. I don't remember the path, just trees flying past me, the ground shifting beneath my feet. At some point I tripped, slammed my head on a rock, blacked out. When I woke up, The fog was gone. It was daylight. Birds were chirping. I was back on the trail. I don't know how I got there. I never found that clearing again. When I tried to retrace my steps with the rangers, the forest didn't match anything I remembered. The GPS didn't help. My tracker had no data from the time I'd gone missing. But I wasn't the same. I still hear the scream sometimes, at night when the house is quiet, not outside, inside. And sometimes, just for a second, I see the spiral in mirrors, in the frost on my windows, in my coffee. I don't go hiking anymore. I don't go near fog. And if you ever hear something in the woods that sounds almost human, don't answer, because once you hear it, it never stops hearing you. If I hadn't stopped to retie my boot, I never would have seen the trail, and maybe I'd still sleep through the night. My name's Eric Holloway. I'm a high school teacher from Asheville, North Carolina. After 9 months of grading papers, breaking up hallway fights, and pretending I cared about standardized testing, all I wanted was silence. Just a few days alone with my thoughts in the trees. The Blue Ridge Mountains felt like the right place for that. Peaceful, timeless, safe. God, I was wrong. It was the 3rd day of my solo hike when I found it. I'd been making steady progress on a lesser-known part of the mountains to sea trail, pacing myself, enjoying the solitude. The sky was clear, the air crisp. It should have been perfect. I'd just stopped to adjust my bootlace when I noticed something odd off to the right, almost hidden between 2 massive poplars, a narrow path. Not marked on my map, no blazes, overgrown, choked with thorny brush like it hadn't been touched in years. But there was something about it. The way the branches arched overhead, forming a canopy, a natural archway, like a doorway. It felt like it was waiting for me. I stood there staring at it far too long. Then, like an idiot, I told myself it was just a shortcut, maybe to a scenic overlook or a hidden stream. I was here to explore, wasn't I? So I stepped off the main trail. The temperature dropped immediately. I told myself it was just the shade, but it wasn't the shade. The forest on this side was different. Not darker exactly, just wrong. The silence was thicker. The trees stood closer, their limbs reaching low, too low, like they didn't want me passing between them. Moss grew on both sides of the trunks, not just the north, which didn't make sense. I walked deeper. The trail narrowed fast, forcing me to duck under twisted limbs and sidestep thorny vines that clung to my clothes. There were no footprints, no signs of human presence. The path looked like it was being swallowed, piece by piece, by the woods, and yet it persisted, like it was guiding me somewhere. About 20 minutes in, I started to hear it. Footsteps. Behind me. Mimicking mine, but just a half beat off. When I stopped, they stopped. When I moved, they resumed. At first, I told myself it was just an echo. Maybe the crunch of my own boots bouncing strangely off the hills, but when I tested it, taking one, soft step, then another, then pausing, the rhythm broke. The steps didn't match. They were reacting to me. I turned around fast, expecting to see someone, something, standing there. Nothing. Just trees, and silence so heavy it pressed against my eardrums. Still, I didn't turn back. I don't know why. Maybe pride. Maybe some primal suicidal curiosity. Whatever it was, I kept walking. The path kept changing, narrowing, dimming, swallowing sound. That's when I noticed the marks. Not carvings, not initials or trail symbols. These were scratches, long and shallow, gouged into the bark of trees on both sides of the path. Some were straight, others spiraled, and one of them, still fresh, dripped something dark and sticky. I touched it. It wasn't sap, and it was warm. I told myself I'd turn back after one more bend, but the trail bent again, And again. It never ended. It just kept winding, tighter and tighter, like it was coiling around me. And that's when I realized I couldn't hear the forest anymore. No birds, no insects, no wind. Nothing but my own breath and the soft, persistent crunch of footsteps behind me. The footsteps behind me wouldn't stop. No matter how fast or slow I moved, they matched me. Always just far enough back that I couldn't see who or what was there. I called out twice, voice dry, strained. "Hello? Is someone there?" The second time I swear I heard breathing. Not mine. It was labored like something injured. But it was close. Too close. I turned again, flashlight ready. But the trees stared back in silence. Then I saw something shift behind one of the trunks. A flash of pale skin, gone in an instant. I started moving faster, not quite running, but close. The trail was almost gone now, more instinct than path, just the ghost of a trail etched between the trees. I kept trying to retrace my steps, but nothing looked familiar. Every root, every stone, every twisted limb looked the same. And worse, I began passing the same fallen log over and over. Same moss pattern, same gash in the bark. Same tiny blue feather snagged on a branch. I was going in circles, or something was making it feel that way. I took a break only when the panic made me dizzy. I leaned against a tree, wiped the sweat from my face, and checked my phone. No bars, no GPS. Of course not. It didn't matter. There was no way tech could reach whatever this place was. Then I heard it again, a whisper. Close. Too close. It didn't come from a direction I could track. It slid through the trees, a breath against my neck without wind. I held my breath. And it whispered again. This time, I caught a word. Follow. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. I turned. There, in the distance, barely visible through the trees, was a figure, tall, motionless, facing away from me. Same pale skin, same unnatural stillness. Only now I could see its back, covered in deep carved spirals, etched straight into the flesh. Blood ran in fine threads down its spine, soaking into the soil. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My voice was gone. Figure took a step forward, not toward me but deeper into the woods, then another step, and stopped. Waiting. Like it wanted me to follow. I should have run. Every instinct screamed to turn and flee, but my legs didn't obey. I stepped forward, pulled by something deeper than fear, something like gravity. The closer I got, the less real everything felt. The trees blurred. The shadows deepened. My footsteps made no sound now. And then, it disappeared. Not into the mist. Not behind a tree. It just blinked out of existence. Gone. And, in its place, I saw a small clearing. A circle of dead leaves, perfect in shape. No wind, no movement. Just stillness. In the center, half buried in dirt, was something metallic. I stepped into the circle, and the air shifted. Denser. Like I was underwater. I reached down and pulled it out. Compass. Cracked. Rusted. Still spinning. It didn't point north. It didn't point anywhere. It spun, slow and steady, like it had been waiting to be found. And then, just beyond the clearing, I saw a new path. Narrow. Fresh. Not a deer trail. A made path. It hadn't been there before. But it was now. And something in me knew with the kind of cold certainty that goes beyond reason, that the way back was no longer behind me. If I wanted to leave, I'd have to go forward. I don't remember deciding to walk down that path, I just remember moving. Each step forward felt like sinking deeper into something alive. The air was thick and moist, clinging to my skin like breath. Trees leaned in, branches low and crooked like limbs broken and set wrong. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The idea of turning around made my skin crawl, like something was waiting for that. The trail got stranger. The trees changed, no longer familiar hardwoods, but twisted things with bark that peeled in strips, like dead flesh. The ground pulsed under my boots, spongy and soft, as if roots were shifting just beneath the surface. I started hearing whispers again. But now, they weren't alone. Laughter. Children's laughter. Faint. High-pitched. Wrong. Like a recording played too slow. Then the sound of breathing. Then a voice that mimicked my own, whispering from the trees. Eric. I dropped the compass. It hit the ground and shattered. The needle kept spinning. And the path opened. There, through a wall of branches, I saw it. Another clearing wider than the last. In the center stood a massive, rotting tree stump. Blackened. Hollow. Its roots spread out like veins across the dirt. Something inside it moved. At first it looked like fabric. A jacket, maybe. Then I saw the shape of a shoulder. A neck. A face. Not a body. A husk. Dried out. Mouth stretched open in a silent scream. Spirals carved all over the skin. Empty sockets where eyes used to be. I stepped closer. I don't know why. And that's when the forest spoke. Not with words. With memory. Suddenly, I was standing in my classroom. Lights flickering. Students staring blankly. One of them stood up. Slowly, face wrong, lips twitching. Do you remember where you are? Blink. Now I was back in my house. Kitchen. My dog lying on the floor, eyes open and still. The fridge buzzing like a broken television. Blood pooling beneath the door. Blink. Back in the woods. The tree. The body. But now, others were there. Figures, standing in a wide circle around the clearing. Pale. Still. Watching me. Each one marked, each one holding something small. Keys, phones, photos, reminders. I was one of them now. I was already part of it. I backed away, breath hitching, heart slamming. In my chest, one of the figures stepped forward, arms twitching like it didn't quite remember how to move. It reached into its coat and pulled something out. My backpack, my journal. Open. Pages filled with spirals I don't remember drawing. Hundreds of them. And, below each spiral just one word. Stay. That was when I ran. Through branches that clawed at me. Over roots that tripped me. The forest screamed. An avalanche of noise and laughter and gibberish. And then, light. I burst through the trees and hit the ground hard. Dirt, rocks, trail. The real trail. It was morning. Birds chirped. The sun filtered through the canopy. And I was out. I walked for miles until I found my car. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized my face. Mud, blood, something dark caked under my eyes. I drove home in silence. I tried to forget, but I can't. I still hear them. Every night. The whispers. The spinning. And this morning, there was a spiral on my front door, drawn in dirt, still wet. I've worked enough double shifts in the ER to know what real fear looks like. But nothing, not the screams, the blood, or the cold, dead stares, prepared me for what I saw that day in the forest. It was supposed to be my reset. After a 72-hour hospital stretch and barely any sleep, I needed air. Real air, not the sterile fluorescent kind. So I grabbed my gear, tossed a water bottle in my backpack, and headed north to a quiet part of the White Mountain National Forest in New Hampshire. No tourists, no noise, no one around for miles, just trees, dirt, and my own thoughts. I thought that was a good thing. The air was cool, crisp, just after sunrise. Light filtered through the canopy in slivers, making the leaves shimmer with gold. I walked slowly, breathing it in, letting it all wash the hospital out of me. About an hour in, I saw it. At first, I wasn't sure. Just a sliver of movement off to the right, about 40 yards into the trees. I stopped. My first instinct was rational. Another hiker. Maybe someone trying to catch the same piece I was. But they weren't moving. They were standing dead still among the trees, perfectly motionless. I squinted. Their skin. It was pale. Like paper. Almost too pale. The light hit them in a way that made them glow. Unnatural, like they didn't belong in that forest. Like they weren't made of the same material as everything else. "Hey!" I called out. No answer. I took a step closer off the trail, the dry twigs cracking under my boots. Still no movement. No sound. Just that thing, that figure watching me. Or at least I thought it was. I took another step, and they turned. But it wasn't a normal turn. There was no pivot. No motion in the limbs or body. It was like they slid, not walked, glided, slowly deeper into the forest, without breaking a single twig beneath their feet. And then they vanished, swallowed by shadow. Goosebumps prickled down my arms. I rubbed my eyes, shook my head. Maybe I was hallucinating from exhaustion. Maybe the stress had finally cracked something loose in me. I forced a chuckle and stepped back onto the trail, but I couldn't shake it. That image of pale skin glowing like bone under the trees. The way they moved. Wrong. Inhuman. The quiet around them was deafening. I've been in the woods plenty of times, and even in the calmest spots you hear birds, insects, leaves whispering in the wind. But not there. Around that figure, it was like the forest held its breath. Still, I pressed on. Told myself it was just my imagination. I walked another 30 minutes trying to lose myself in the rhythm of my steps, the sound of boots crunching dirt, the feel of the air cooling as the sun rose higher. Then I saw them again. Closer this time, maybe 30 feet away, off the trail. Same pale skin, same dead stillness. Watching. I froze. My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught somewhere behind my ribs. I stared, hoping they would move. Do something to prove they were human. But they didn't. Just stared. Then, like before, they turned. That same gliding motion, deeper into the trees, and vanished. I don't know how long I stood there. Minutes, probably. My brain screamed at me to leave, to run, but I couldn't. I felt drawn, not by curiosity, by something colder, something hungrier. I forced myself to move again, faster this time. My hand stayed clenched around the pepper spray in my pocket, even though I knew whatever I'd just seen wouldn't be stopped by that. When the trail dipped into a hollow, the light changed, dimmer, colder. I slowed. The ground was damp here, soft beneath my boots. The trees seemed tighter, closer. I kept checking behind me, scanning the woods. I told myself not to look, that there was nothing there. But then I saw it. Just a glimpse. White skin behind a tree. Vanishing before I could fully register it, I turned, heart pounding, and walked faster. Not long after, I reached a familiar marker. Relief crashed over me like a wave. I knew this spot. I was close to the parking lot, maybe 10 minutes out. I could make it. I didn't let myself breathe easy yet. I kept walking. One eye behind me. Always behind me. Then I saw it again. Farther off, just at the edge of the tree line. The figure stood in shadow. Still. Waiting. Watching. And this time, I swear, it stepped forward, my stomach flipped. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my keys when I reached my car. I didn't look back again. I couldn't. I slammed the door, turned the ignition with trembling fingers, and didn't stop driving until the forest was just a smear in the rear-view mirror. But even now, hours later, back in the safety of my apartment, I can feel it. Watching, waiting, like it followed me home. I couldn't sleep. No matter how many lights I left on, no matter how many times I told myself it was over, that I was safe, the feeling wouldn't go away. It wasn't just fear, it was something deeper, older, like my bones knew something my mind refused to accept. The figure wasn't just a hallucination. I knew that now, because it came back. It started with small things, flickers in the corner of my eye, shadows where there shouldn't be shadows. Once, I caught a pale shape in the reflection of my kitchen window. It vanished the moment I turned around, but I felt it. Felt that pressure in the air, that silence. Just like in the woods. I tried to convince myself it was trauma. Maybe my brain was reacting to the stress of the hospital shifts and the hike and the exhaustion. I even called a therapist, left a message I never had the courage to follow up on. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't in my head. 3 nights after the hike, it escalated. It was around 2 a.m. I'd fallen asleep on the couch with the TV on, volume low, just enough noise to feel like I wasn't alone. Something jolted me, awake. Not a sound, not a dream. Just a cold, primal sense that I wasn't alone in the room. The TV had gone to static. The air felt heavy, stale, like the room had been sealed for years. And then, from the hallway, I heard it. A whisper. My name. Soft. Deliberate. Claire. I froze. Every hair on my body stood on end. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My heart was hammering, so loud I swore it would give me away. Then, silence. I reached for my phone, but the screen wouldn't light up. Dead. I know I'd charged it. I know it was at 80% before I crashed on the couch. I grabbed the flashlight from my emergency drawer and stood up slowly, trying to convince myself it was just a nightmare, just a dream. I stepped into the hallway, empty, dark still. The door to my bedroom was wide open. I always close it at night, always. I stepped closer, every instinct screaming at me to stop. I should have turned back, should have left the house, entirely. But something kept pulling me forward, like gravity, like the air itself wanted me to go in. I raised the flashlight. Nothing. Then I saw it. Barely visible in the far corner of the room, something pale. Almost blending into the wall. Not moving. Just there like it had always been there, waiting for me to see it. The moment I locked eyes with it, I felt my breath leave my lungs. I couldn't scream. Couldn't blink. It was like it reached into my chest and squeezed. Then it moved. Not toward me. It didn't need to. It unfolded. Its limbs stretched too far. Its body bent wrong. Like it had been hiding in the space between the walls. Like it had never been human at all. I fell backward into the hallway and slammed the door shut, locking it, bracing it with my shoulder as if that would help. I didn't hear footsteps. Didn't hear anything. Just silence. And then, that same voice, calm, quiet, right behind the door. Claire. I screamed, not out of fear, out of pure, soul-deep terror. I grabbed my keys and ran barefoot to my car, not stopping for my shoes or my phone. I drove until the city lights drowned out the darkness. I didn't go home that night. I didn't go back the next day either. I stayed in a motel 3 towns over, lights on, TV blaring, sleeping in 20-minute spurts, heart pounding every time the air conditioner clicked on. I called a friend the next morning and made up some story about a break-in. She offered to come stay with me, but I said no, because I knew the truth. No lock would keep it out. No police report could explain what I saw. Whatever I brought back from that forest, it knew me now. It had seen me, and it wanted me to see it too. I eventually went back to the house, not because I was ready, but because I was tired. Bone tired. Hiding in motel rooms, living out of a backpack, jumping at every flicker of light. It was eating me alive. I convinced myself I needed closure, that if I went back, I could face it, take control. I even bought a small camera, thinking maybe if I could capture it, prove to myself it was real, I'd have some power over it. I was wrong. The house was just as I left it. Keys still on the floor. Bedroom door still locked. The air inside felt stale, like something had been holding its breath, waiting for me to return. I didn't unpack. Didn't sit. I just turned on every single light in the house and walked the halls with the camera rolling, flashlight in hand. I called out, "I know you're here." Silence. I checked every room, every closet, every shadow. Nothing. I was about to shut the camera off when I noticed it. The attic door was open. I hadn't touched it. I never even used the attic. It was just a crawl space with insulation and dust. But the hatch above the hallway was hanging, loose. The stairs extended down like an invitation. I don't know why I climbed. Maybe I was numb. Maybe part of me knew it would end this way. The attic was pitch black. I raised the flashlight, heart pounding, and stepped inside. There was something up there. Not a person, not a creature, a shape. Hunched. Wrong. It looked like a mannequin that had melted and twisted in the heat, limbs too long, head cocked at an impossible angle. Its skin wasn't even skin, it was translucent. Thin. Like wet paper stretched over bones that didn't belong to any animal on Earth, and it was wearing my face. Not perfectly. Not like a mask. Like it had studied me. Tried to recreate me from memory, from glimpses in mirrors and windows. The shape of my jaw, the color of my hair, the hollow look in my eyes. It opened its mouth and let out a sound I will never forget. Not a scream, not a growl, it was my voice begging, "Help me." I dropped the flashlight. The attic went black, and I heard it move. Fast, crawling across the beams, thudding against the wood, dragging its limbs in frantic jerks like it couldn't quite remember how to be alive. I ran. I didn't look back. Didn't breathe until I was outside in the driveway, sobbing, shaking, my knees in the gravel. I left everything, my phone, my keys, my sanity. I drove for hours, no destination, just away. I don't even remember where I ended up. Some roadside diner. I sat in a booth until dawn, staring at my reflection in the window. But it wasn't my face I saw. It was its. And now, it's not just the forest, not just the house. It's in every reflection, every dream, every whisper in the dark that sounds just a little too much like my own voice. It didn't follow me home. I think it is me now. Or maybe I never really left those woods. Maybe I'm still there. Still watching myself, waiting for me to notice I never made it out. If you're reading this and thinking about hiking alone, don't. Stay on the trail. Don't look into the trees. And for God's sake, don't answer if something whispers your name, because once it knows who you are, it never lets you go. Not really. Not ever. If you've survived this far and you're one of those who love fear and terror, then don't waste any time. I kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any content. The video you're watching on screen is just a taste of what's coming. Watch it. Thank you for being here, and see you next time, if you're capable of handling what's to come.